Hi everyone, welcome to DIY Ideas. So today I'm going to show you the first steps you need to take with your sewing machine in order to do the basics. So we already did the basics in sewing machines and now we'll get started with our actual first project. So I'll teach you how to do straight lines or straight stitches. So I hope it'll be helpful for the very beginners among you, and if you already know how to do this, there are also many other videos for more advanced projects on my channel. But the very beginners among you, you'll find this very useful, as well as a ton of other projects and basics on my channel. So either way, feel free to check it out. I have a ton of things I already did. And yeah, in another video, I already showed you how to get started with the thread on the top section where your needle is and on the bottom in here as well in the box. So feel free to check that out if you need to. And I have that already on my channel. But let's get started with today's basics video. So I'm going to show you how to do regular straight stitches. So I recommend you use something that you have left over or cut out a small section of some new fabric that you got. You can maybe even use some towels or old racks from your kitchen, so pretty much anything you have at home. But I do recommend that you start with something that doesn't stretch, just to keep it simpler for now. So let me show you what I did here. So you can see the stitch length that we have here on our sewing machine is on 4. So that's the top one here marked with the dot on top. So this is a very wide stitch, which means that each time the needle actually punches through the fabric, there's a lot of room in between. So that's basically the length. So since we are just practicing, we want it a little bit longer than usual. And then the tightness on my machine is on top here. So I always put it between 3 and 4 when I'm working with cotton fabric. But yeah, all in all, you can play with this depending on what you're looking for. But a good trick to know is that the thicker your fabric is, so maybe if you have a thicker piece of fabric or multiple layers in here, so the thicker it is anyway, the less tension or tightness you want in your stitch. So just give it a shot with different types of fabric and you'll quickly learn what you like and what suits you best. This of course depends on the fabric, but also on your own taste. So let's get started. So you see here that I folded and aligned this edge here. So I have 2 layers and I want to stitch that up as straight as possible. So another thing to think about is that the fabric itself should be as straight as possible. If that's being weird in any way, so if it's being crooked or any other kind of weird, you're gonna have a much harder time doing a straight line because you can't use the edge as a reference here on the side. So that especially helps if you're rounding corners or if you're doing corners in any way, but I'll show you rounding like so in just a round shape, or if you're doing anything trickier here, any shape, and we usually do the edge 1 centimeter away from the end of the fabric, and you rarely do stitches across the fabric. You rather go along its edges. So all in all, make sure that your fabric edges are mimicking the shape of your piece that you want to have it in the end. So I zoomed in a bit so that I can show you nicely and so that you can see what I'm doing. So on here next to the foot, you can see some lines. So these are little marks that help you with the distance. So they're always 5 millimeters or 1/2 centimeter apart. And this way you can decide how far you want the stitch from the very edge of the fabric, and that's completely up to you. You can also use this to help keep your stitches neat. So I'll put my foot down. So you see here the needle that goes through the middle. So if you stop right at the edge of the foot, you'll have minimal space away from the edge, about 1/2 centimeter. And if you move that, you increase the distance between the edge of the fabric and the stitch that you're gonna do. You can also measure with a measuring tape or a ruler or whatever and check the distance, and then if you need more than you have on here, you can also mark it with a piece of tape on here that you can later take off again. So it's always working with you, and you can do this any way you like. So there's a lot of room to experiment, a lot of room to try it out, but I do recommend doing it as close to the edge with most projects, simply because you're not wasting a lot of fabric and you're gonna get really neat results in the end. So either way, I'm gonna show you the basics, so let's get started. So I usually do about 1.5 centimeters of distance, so that's the first big line that you see on here. So the foot gives us a 0.5 centimeter, then we move 2 more lines and we get the standard distance. So that's usually what we do with projects unless we specify otherwise. But this is the standard that also makes sure that you have enough room but aren't wasting any additional fabric. So of course, as I already said, this is completely up to you and how you want it, but I'll just show you for starters the standard version and how to do that. And then just make sure that it's always aligned with the line on the base here. And now the next step, the foot is always down when you're doing the stitches. When you pause or stop or are done, you take it up, but the foot should be down to keep the fabric in place when you're actually sewing. So that's there for you, and it's going to make everything easier and simpler to do. So now that we're ready for the next step, and that's pressing the pedal to get our stitch started. So you want to press it slowly and not too suddenly, because it's going to be too fast for you to see what's going on that way. So if you're using a leftover from another project, then it's of course not a big deal if it doesn't look super neat in the beginning. But if you decided to do a project already, then you just want to make sure that you're starting a bit slower with the pedal, just so you can monitor the process. So let's get started. So my left hand is always on here, the other one might not be visible because I zoomed in, but I'm just slowly guiding the fabric with it, and that way we have good control of our fabric so that we have straight lines. But what is also very useful to know is that with the rounded or even more complex stitches than that, we can also use these to have good control of our fabric and kind of guide it. When you're done, you can take the foot up, and then we will cut off the leftover thread, and then we can see if we like the stitch, if it needs fixing, or if it's looking good, and then we know if we can move on. So this is the very beginning, and you can do this with some patience, even if you've never done this before. So it's not going to be difficult. It might seem a little bit challenging, but it's actually really simple to get started, even if you have zero experience. So what you want to do is just basically follow these lines here or make your own wherever you need them, and that's pretty much it. I'll also show you something else in this video, so I'll show you how to secure the beginning and the end so that it doesn't get pulled apart on accident. And if I pull here on this end right now, I would or could unstitch the whole thing. So in order for that not to happen, we will secure the beginning and the end. And I'll show you how to do that. It's definitely very simple, and all you're going to do is basically go back and forth a couple of times, and then that way you're going to make sure that the stitch cannot rip or unstitch itself as easily. So the backward or reverse stitch always has a very big button, or in my case this lever, but you'll always easily find how to do this on your own machine. So it can be in the middle of the machine or wherever, but it'll be easy to find. So let me show you how to do that. So we always start at the front for a little bit. And now I'm pressing the button or lever, and then I press the pedal and it automatically goes in reverse. Then I repeat 2 more times, and that way we have a secured stitch. Same thing at the end, and I'll show you. So it's a bit bulkier than the rest, but this way you can't really rip this out or unstitch it by accident. So it's a really good way to keep everything in place for a long time. So now I want to show you how to do a rounded stitch. So you see here that my fabric is already in the desired rounded shape. And now what we want to do is just follow it, basically kind of accompany the edge that's already there with a little stitch. So this is a bit trickier because you can't always use the lines as easily to guide you, but it'll still work if you're following and guiding the fabric a bit, or at least a section at a time. So I marked the 1.5 centimeters that I want to do, and I'll start right away. I'll again repeat and recommend that you do this slowly, simply because you have more control over what happens and you can see more easily what's going on in there. So take your time at first before you get used to this. It'll help you a lot, and it'll keep everything neat and just the way you planned it to be. Our mark is ready, so let's get started. So the curve begins here already, so we will guide it with our fingers and we will again work slowly. Also, don't just push it too fast into the needle like this, because it'll look weird. Now that you do this nicely and neatly, you can always follow the edge and do the stitch perfectly. Of course, the needed prep for this is what makes the edge of the fabric neatly cut in exactly the shape that you want it to, and then that way you're getting a nice result that's not crooked or frayed or something weird. So take your time and take some nice fabric scissors, and it'll be done in a matter of seconds and it'll look amazing, as you can see on here. So this is all that you're going to need in the end. My second tip for today is to take the line on the machine and use it kind of as a guide for your edge, and that way it'll be even easier. So use the one that you already have on here, or even mark your own somewhere on the machine, and that's pretty much it. Beginnings are not always easy, and I know that, but I just wanted to encourage you in your journey and show you that it's definitely doable, even if you don't have a lot of experience or maybe a lot of talent for this. So I hope you guys enjoyed. Feel free to let me know what you think. You can also shoot us a thumbs up to let us know that this was useful to you. If you have any questions or comments, as always, the comment section is below the video. And yeah, this is one of the basics videos, so if you're looking for more basics, feel free to check out my channel. But there's also a lot of more advanced stuff and projects for those of you who maybe already know the basics. So thanks for watching DIY Ideas. I hope to see you in one of our next videos. If you'd like to stay updated for that, feel free to subscribe, and I'll see you then. Have a great day. Bye!